Good morning out there, traders. It's May 22nd, 2024. Welcome to the Apteros Daily Market Insight. So, taking a look at what our plan was yesterday, pretty straightforward in terms of the opportunities that presented themselves for us. The open kind of being right in this zone here. So, what we were seeing as we were coming into the open, the only place where the DMI was a little ambiguous actually was at that open down in this section here. And it really depended on how you read acceptance. Now, for me, this particular area was somewhere I was still monitoring on the bullish side. I had mentioned that briefly in the DMI. So I wasn't, switching to shorts or anything like that until I got below this neutral reference. But at this point here, I was still looking for the bulls. But even if that wasn't necessarily what you were seeing in that particular zone, it was pretty straightforward because the really wasn't a good inflection to the downside to really continue on. And the acceptance picture, was questionable at best in terms of rhythm. So in as far as acceptance went, this was still a bullish area overall, and that's what we were kind of paying attention to in this particular situation. So as this market continued to rally out of that zone, we actually ended up getting the pullback that we needed for a really solid move coming into the end of the session, down into here, into these lows, testing this line in the sand. It took all day to happen, right? So even coming out from these lows, if you weren't able to capitalize on that area, the pullback here taking and manifesting all day, kind of into the afternoon, and then the close just kind of releasing straight up into our neutral zone. The end of the day actually has been pretty interesting in the last couple of weeks in terms of the DMIs and how they're lining up, and some of our best opportunities, excuse me, are actually coming from the afternoon, based on our line in the sand areas and the clear acceptance picture. So, I mean, it ebbs and flows. These things fluctuate as we go. We plan in the morning and we prep everything out, and those plans, are solid all day and sometimes for multiple days. So this is just how it played out yesterday, and pretty much our bullish thesis and scenario right out to our main target for what we were planning. So great DMI, great levels, and let's get after it again today here. Today's landscape is a little bit more tricky because we essentially have a balanced area that we're in right now. So you can see just based on the price action, we've been building value in this zone now for a couple of days, right? At least 2 days. And this particular area here between the bearish line in the sand and the bullish line in the sand is a very rotational one. This is where the market is gathering value. And we've had some breaks from this area. We've had some breaks that just don't hold, right? They get out there, it looks like they're going to trend, and then they collapse right back in. And we have them on the lower edge too, right? Where it looks like they're going to trend in one direction and they just collapse right back into this value area. So this is just part of the pattern that we're seeing right now in the overall environment and conditions. For our scenarios today, it's pretty straightforward. Let me just kind of give us a little bit of room here so I can mark it up. The scenario one is going to be remaining rotational. That means that in this area here, if we pull back to our line in the sand, the expectation is more of this, right? Back and forth, and maybe even seeing little probes outside of our line in the sand areas, but then a quick collapse right back into there. So definitely more of a rotational narrative if we end up seeing scenario one play out. Now, scenario two would be a break to the upside, and that would be a break down, or a break up, I would say, of our bearish line in the sand at this point, heading out into this main target area here for our first target. And that would kind of be the destination we're looking for out of scenario two. If we end up seeing scenario three, that would be a breakdown of our line in the sand, our immediate line in the sand here for today for the bulls. And that would be heading down towards the bigger, higher time frame contextual idea that's still bullish at the time. So definitely something to monitor if scenario three plays out, how we interact down here in this zone. The expectation is that we hold this area at least and start pushing back out of it, heading in back into the neutral zone areas. But if we do get scenario three, once we kind of make this move here, the market enters a dissonance area because our shorter time frames will be bearish from these areas. Our bigger time frame will be bullish from this area, and that would be kind of the dissonant zone. It would be, of course, after the price would clear and come down into that area. So once we get this point in time, then the dissonance would persist into the future, if we end up seeing that kind of movement to the downside. And if we break to the upside, things kind of remain status quo for the bulls. The reason why this is even a bearish line in the sand in the first place is because we are building value and we are seeing a rotational context in this zone. Otherwise, we would pretty much just have a bullish area here and a neutral area here. but that's not the case. We find ourselves in a, pretty balanced, narrative and condition at this point. So that's what we're paying attention to, and that's what we're monitoring for the what is picture, because that is our what is picture on our shorter time frames, and that's what we're going to be monitoring as the session develops here. All right, so trade well, mind your risk out there, and let's get after it.